Welcome to News Wrap Local. I'm your host, Justin Chapman. Thanks for being here. Happy National Native American Heritage Month. After providing a few brief updates on this month's local stories, we'll speak with our guest, LA County Supervisor Catherine Barger. But before we get started, let's check out these Pasadena Media News Briefs.
On Saturday, November 12th, Caltech will celebrate its Seismological Laboratories Centennial. A public movie screening of Shaking in Our Seats, Earthquake Science on the Big Screen, hosted by the Caltech Science Exchange and the Dr. Lucy Jones Center for Science and Society, will explore the science behind on-screen earthquakes in films such as 1974's Earthquake and 2015's San Andreas. The event is free and open to the public, but tickets are required. Arrive early for an earthquake preparedness fair from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. The screening will take place in Beckman Auditorium on the Caltech campus from 1 to 2:30 p.m. During the live event, a panel of scientists, engineers, and public officials, moderated by Dr. Lucy Jones, will provide insight into what happens during and after earthquakes, how scientists and government officials interact, and the future of the field. Panelists will include Caltech professors Dominiki Azimaki and Zhongwen Zhan, California 41st District Assembly member Chris Holden, and acting LA County Fire Chief Anthony Marone. For more information, call 626-395-4652. Pasadena's Paseo Colorado Mall has been purchased in a foreclosure sale by Canadian developer the Omni Group of Vancouver. The Real Deal, a real estate website, reported the Omni Group paid $103 million after the Paseo's owner, NetStreet, a real estate investment trust, defaulted on a $118 million loan earlier this year, prompting foreclosure proceedings. The mall's foreclosure does not include the residential condominiums or rental properties located within the complex. Both are part of a separate entity. The city of Pasadena is considering the addition of a tiny village. The city recently indicated it would like to hear from owners of properties located within the city who would consider making their land available in partnership with the city to provide temporary shelters for those experiencing homelessness in Pasadena. The city has been trying to expand its resources for assisting the more than 500 unsheltered residents estimated to be living within the city. Tiny villages consist of tracts of small, standalone structures with 1 or 2 beds. Such structures are typically 100 square feet or less, but include heating and air conditioning, and most often afford convenient access to shared restrooms, eating, and laundry facilities. While there are currently 12 vacant city-owned properties in Pasadena, several city council members have expressed reservations regarding a tiny village solution. And Pasadena's housing director, William Huang, has previously indicated a preference for converting motels to homeless shelters over other options. Property owners interested in participating are urged to contact the city of Pasadena.
Let's turn next to our lightning round of news updates. 1. Another election on the books. Measure H, Pasadena's rent control charter amendment, has passed, currently with 52.3% of the vote. The new law will limit rent increases to 75% of the percentage increase in the Consumer Price Index for multifamily rental units built before February 1st, 1995. Prohibit evictions from rental units except for a just cause based on 11 specified criteria, including non-payment of rent and breach of lease. Create a citywide rental registry, and establish an independent rental housing board appointed by the City Council to oversee and adopt rules and regulations. Measure H goes into effect 10 days after the council adopts the election results by resolution. Then the city will have 30 days to post the rental board positions. Measure L, Pasadena's special library tax, is well over the 2/3 majority it needed to pass, as expected. PCC's bond measure has also passed, which authorizes $565 million to upgrade labs and classrooms, improve student access to affordable, high-quality education in nursing, engineering, and other trades, fix infrastructure, and remove asbestos and lead paint. In the PUSD school board races, Kimberly Kenny, Michelle Richardson Bailey, Patrice Marshall McKenzie, and Yarma Velasquez are all on track to win their seats. In LA County, which we'll talk to Supervisor Barger about, Measure A, which allows 4/5 of the Board of Supervisors to remove an elected sheriff for cause, will pass overwhelmingly. Those causes include a violation of law related to a sheriff's duties, flagrant or repeated neglect of duties, misappropriation of funds, willful falsification of documents, or obstructing an investigation. In the race for sheriff, former Long Beach Police Chief Robert Luna has defeated incumbent Sheriff Alex Villanueva. When Villanueva beat Sheriff Jim McDonnell 4 years ago, it was the first time in 104 years that an incumbent sheriff lost re-election. Now Villanueva has cut that record down to 4 years. Can't say I'm surprised with his attacks on the press, the supervisors, the Civilian Oversight Commission, the Inspector General, vaccine requirements, and his lack of action on deputy gangs. The Registrar Recorder is tentatively scheduled to certify all county election results on December 5th. Vote count updates will be announced every Tuesday and Friday until all ballots are tallied. 2. The Rose Bowl Stadium turned 100 years old on October 28th. Known as America's Stadium, it has hosted some of the country's and world's biggest sport and music events. To commemorate the occasion, golden lights were displayed at Pasadena City Hall, LAX, LA City Hall, Union Station, SoFi Stadium, Bank of California Stadium, LA Memorial Coliseum, Microsoft Theater, and of course the Rose Bowl. The stadium has hosted 5 NFL Super Bowls, 2 Olympic Games, both the men's and women's FIFA World Cup finals, and concerts such as the Rolling Stones, BTS, U2, Coldplay, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Ed Sheeran, Taylor Swift, and many more. In recent years, the Brookside Golf Course around the stadium has hosted music festivals such as the Arroyo Seco Weekend, This Ain't No Picnic, and more. During the first football game played at the Rose Bowl on October 28, 1922, UC Berkeley, my undergrad, defeated USC, my graduate school, 12-0. 3. The Pasadena Police Department completed its internal administrative review of the fatal shooting of 32-year-old Anthony McLean on August 15, 2020, by Pasadena Police Officer Edwin Dumagwindon. The review concluded that the officer's use of force complied with department policy. The report found the officer acted with, quote, reasonable deadly force against McLean, who allegedly pulled out an unserialized ghost gun as he fled a traffic stop, which they determined constituted an, quote, immediate deadly threat. Police say they found McLean's DNA on the gun, but community members say they didn't see a gun in a video of the incident. However, the review also found that the officer turned on his body-worn camera after the shooting, instead of at the beginning of the traffic stop, a violation of department policy. Chief Clausen disciplined the officer with a written reprimand and enrollment in the Axon Academy, which trains officers in the use of body-worn cameras. Another review about the shooting by the LA District Attorney's Office in April found there was insufficient evidence to charge the officer. A third review by the OIR group, which was retained by the city of Pasadena, will examine the case, recommend possible changes to department policy, be completed in the coming months, and be made public. Civilian Police Oversight Commissioners said they were disappointed but not surprised with the administrative review's conclusions. 4. Also in police news, new city manager Miguel Marquez is expected to announce a new police chief this month. Stay tuned for updates on this important story. 5. A $2 billion Powerball lottery ticket was sold at Joe's Mobile gas station on Woodbury Road in Altadena earlier this month. It was the largest lottery jackpot in U.S. history. The winner has not yet revealed themselves. The ticket holder can either take the money in annuity payments distributed over 29 years or in a lump sum, which would only be $997.6 million. 6. District 3 residents can now apply to be considered for appointment to the late John Kennedy's City Council seat, which will open again next month for the new term that Kennedy won earlier this year after the council appointed Justin Jones in September for the remainder of Kennedy's term. Applications are due by 5:30 p.m. on Thursday, December 1st, to the office of the city clerk. Jones and 36-year-old Luz Marina Miranda, a certified medical assistant and home care aide, have already pulled nomination papers. The City Council will interview candidates again soon. District 3 voters will next get to weigh in on their representative in the 2024 general election per the city charter. And 7. Dr. Frank Molina of Caltech, a co-founder and the second director of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, who helped launch the American rocketry program in the 1930s and 40s, received from the President of the Czech Republic last month a posthumous state medal for merit of the first degree for his contributions to science. August was the 81st anniversary of rocket tests Molina conducted in the Arroyo Seco that led to the establishment of JPL, changed the course of World War II, and created a whole new scientific field, rocket science. Molina, who was born last month in 1912 and died this month in 1981, was pushed out of JPL in the mid-40s as the FBI investigated him for ties to communism, which unfairly diminished his achievements and robbed him of the credit he deserves. He, in fact, played a key role in establishing rocketry as a science and developed the first high-altitude rockets that launched the space race. On November 14th, LAS Studios launched a new 12-episode podcast series about the early history of JPL called LA Made, Blood, Sweat, and Rockets, including the stories of Molina and his controversial partner, Jack Parsons. I was interviewed extensively for the podcast because of my 3-part article series in Pasadena Now about Parsons. Also, check out my new 2-part series about Molina, also in Pasadena Now. LA County Supervisor Catherine Barger, thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure.
Supervisor Barger represents LA County's 5th district, which is the county's largest district and includes 20 cities and 83 unincorporated communities in the Antelope, San Gabriel, San Fernando, Crescenta, and Santa Clarita valleys. She previously served as former Supervisor Mike Antonivich's chief deputy and was elected to the Board of Supervisors in 2016 and reelected in 2020. So, Supervisor, we have a new sheriff. Robert Luna has been elected as the county's new sheriff. What will that mean for relations between the Sheriff's Department and the Board of Supervisors going forward?
Well, I hope we can begin to work together to address concerns that have been, predate, quite frankly, Sheriff Villanueva, but really put together a plan to be transparent and cooperative, and really for the betterment of the entire department, work together to address where there may be need for more resources, where we can focus on allowing our first responders, public safety, to do their job, which would mean maybe looking at providing more services for the mentally ill. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's all about collaboration.
Mm-hmm. And it's looking like Measure A is also going to pass overwhelmingly, which of course allows 4/5 of the Board of Supervisors to remove an elected sheriff for cause. What do you think about that measure? Do you agree with voters that the board should be able to remove a sheriff they elected?
I was the lone vote against putting this on the ballot, in part because I believe that the system works. The sheriff was on the ballot and the voters chose not to elect him back into office. Mm-hmm. My concern is, number one, we only did it for the Sheriff's Department. And I think it was done based on an individual versus really the department, or I'm sorry, the office. And if you look at San Bernardino County, they have the assessor, the DA, and the sheriff on as a grouping. I just think it's a slippery slope. And then we don't even know what cause is. I mean, right now with this board, through the lens, cause could be the fact that Sheriff Villanueva has continued to refuse to comply with the subpoenas that have been brought forward, even when the courts have compelled him to. Mm-hmm. I would agree that is an issue and should be discussed, and it actually has been discussed by our board. But what its cause going to be for the next board that may come behind us? I just think it's a very slippery slope. Mm-hmm.
So it's like that could be abused, or it could be used for political reasons.
I mean, that's my concern. I mean, it's interpretation. And when this was being discussed at the board, I did ask our county counsel, our lawyers, what is cause? And they said, we are going to have to define that. And I think the devil is going to be in the details. My hope is with incoming Sheriff Luna, that we will have a relationship that won't cause consternation amongst my colleagues in terms of how we work together for the greater good of this entire county. And again, for the men and women that put on their uniform each and every day, but also for the general public that wants to see and have trust in those that are protecting them on the streets.
What about an appointed sheriff rather than an elected sheriff? I don't know what it would take to make that change, but is that a viable option?
I mean, obviously, everything's can be considered. It'd have to be a statewide, and I don't think there is the appetite to do that. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's necessary personally. Again, I have faith in the people that vote, and their voice matters. And you can see what happened prior to Villanueva getting elected. We had Sheriff McDonald, who served one term and was not elected and voted back into office. Villanueva, the same thing happened to. So voters, if given the opportunity, I believe will do what's right.
Yeah. And the race for the third district seat on the Board of Supervisors is still really close and not called yet, though Lindsay Horvath is leading Bob Hertzberg. Either way, how do you anticipate the results of that race altering the dynamic on the board?
I don't see it altering the dynamic on the board. Quite frankly, as a group, we can agree to disagree, but we do collaborate and we do cooperate with each other. So, whether it be Bob or Lindsay, I look forward to working with the supervisor that's going to take over the third district. We've got a lot of important things before us. The economy is slowing down. We've got decisions to make as it relates to a $44 billion budget now. And I think it's important for us to work together. And so whomever the voters put in the third district, I look forward to working with him or her.
Mm-hmm. As you may know, I was elected to the Altadena Town Council back in 2005 when I was 19. At that time, your former boss, Supervisor Mike Antonovich, represented the 5th District. And of course, the Altadena Town Council is an advisory body to the Board of Supervisors. Talk to us a little bit about the role of the county in that relationship between Pasadena and neighboring Altadena, which of course falls in your district. And what other issues do the county and city of Pasadena work together on?
And I think that's a great question. First of all, thank you for your service. I always joke that the town council gets paid nothing, but they do a lot of work. They, in essence, are my eyes and ears in the unincorporated area of Altadena. And quite frankly, no project that comes forward in Altadena is voted on in front of me until the Altadena Town Council takes a position. Because again, they are the eyes and ears of people living in Altadena. And I love the diversity on the town council just for that reason. They really do represent an incredible dynamic community. Working with the city of Pasadena, I'm honored to work with Mayor Gordo and the entire city council because crime, health, they don't know borders. It's important to, again, I guess the word of the evening is collaborate, working together. And the town council, for me, on a day-to-day basis, is really who I look to kind of take a temperature in the community. And then we work with both the captain of Altadena Sheriff, as well as the police chief, Pasadena Police, to really make sure that we are coordinating all of our efforts so that we're not duplicating, but that we are in fact really benefiting from the services that we all provide. So it's important to have that collaboration. And I, as a supervisor, have always made a point of really working with all city councils and all the town councils because it really is about community service, it's about constituent services. And that's really where I think we've got strength with Altadena and Pasadena.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Altadena, like Pasadena, is a town that has a very engaged citizenry. And so what are some of the most important issues facing LA County going into the new year?
Well, I mean, and I'm looking at it not only from my lens, but I think from polls that have been taken. Homelessness definitely is at the top of the list. And when you see a spike in crime, and as it relates to those that are homeless, that in fact have mental illness, which is what we're seeing now. We're seeing more and more of that coming forward. And we just had that stabbing at the Target downtown. Clearly a man that was having some mental illness issues. That keeps me awake at night. We have to do more. And more means not only building housing, because housing alone is not going to get us out of this. It's about substance abuse treatment. It's about mental health care, access both in the community, but also hospitalization, which we don't have enough beds right now. So I'm working with the state and with the federal government to address that issue of bringing additional beds online to get an IMD waiver through the federal government, which means that we'll actually be able to build more mental health beds and build Medicaid, which right now, if you have 16 or more beds, you cannot do. So that is a very high priority for me. And also public safety, crime. People are not feeling safe. And as someone who grew up in the community, I want to be able to walk down the street and not be concerned for my own safety. And so I think it is working with our public safety officers across the board, not just Pasadena PD, but the sheriff, all of our police departments and our police chiefs, to find out what we can do better to help ensure that our communities are safe.
Yeah, and you mentioned housing as well, and Pasadena. It looks like rent control is passing in Pasadena. What are some ways that we can make LA County a more affordable place to live?
You know, I talked to an expert on this from USC who really spelled it out: supply and demand. If you've got a supply, the demand is there, but the price stays down. If you don't have the supply and the demand goes up, people can charge what the market value is. And so our goal is in the county to put in more affordable housing, but also to put more housing in general into the system. We have the state, which has been very controversial, and you're going to probably be hearing a lot more about this. It's called RHNA. It's a Regional Housing Need Assessment. And the state has mandated that over the next 10 years, we have to bring online housing in Southern California. What is that going to mean to places like Altadena and Pasadena? It is going to mandate that we're going to have to bring additional units online. And that's going to be in areas and corridors along Lake and Fair Oaks. And it's going to be a very controversial thing to do because you're not going to be able to build out, you're going to have to build up. And I think we need to be very careful. We need to be cognizant of the uniqueness of each community and get input from our town councils, from our city councils moving forward. But that's going to be something that I think is going to definitely cause quite a bit of dialogue. But if we bring more housing online, the cost will come down.
And how is the county's recovery from the pandemic going? Where do challenges remain there?
Well, I mean, what I hear is challenges remain in trust. I know that today I got a notice that public health talked about masks. They're not mandating masks right now because the numbers are going up. But it's about really embracing the fact that people do know how to protect themselves at this point. We are 3 years into this pandemic. We all know that if you're in a large crowd and you are susceptible or you have pre-existing medical conditions, wear a mask. So it's about really rebuilding the trust with the people, especially with the mothers and fathers who have kids in school. That was definitely an area where I got probably the most letters were from angry parents who wanted their kids back in school and then wanted their kids not to have to wear a mask and the whole thing. So, you know, that's an area that I think we're gonna have to build more trust. But it's just, you know, across the board, working to reopen, and we have, but recognize that COVID is here and we have to learn to live with it. And there are things you can do to take care of yourself, to protect your family and your loved ones, I mean, across the board. And, you know, I'm hoping that we can have this in our, you know, looking back and optimistically looking forward to getting back to a strong economy.
And what are you hearing from the business community? Are they starting to recover from the economic disruption of the pandemic?
It varies, and I will tell you, the mom and pops are the ones that suffered the most. The LA EDC did a report that really did highlight the small businesses. Literally, some of them were not going to be able to come back online because they just couldn't write it out. And it's been a struggle. And I think that when you hear, you know, legislative office of the state came out today saying that they think there is going to be a deficit. The state, they're estimating 25 billion. They're indicating that the economy may be slowing down. The businesses hear that, especially the small ones who are already struggling. It creates a lot of fear. So our goal in the county, and I am only one of five, but as five, we've all agreed that when we get federal and state dollars that have been provided to us to get us through this whole COVID, we have used that money to reinvest in business grants, in supporting services in our communities, recognizing that they bared the brunt of the closures when we had to shut down because of COVID.
And finally, what are your future plans? You're up for re-election, right, in 2024, which I believe is the third and final 4-year term. Are you considering another public office after that, or instead of that? What are your plans?
Absolutely not. My heart is with the county. I ran for this office because I genuinely do love the county. So I'm going to run for my third and final term. and serve the residents of the 5th District as hard as I have for the last, 2 terms that I've been in office. And then I'm going to hang up my hat. I'm going to volunteer. I love 5 acres, sycamores. That foster youth are important to me, mental health, supporting my community who has given so much to me. So when I'm done being a supervisor, I'm going to give back to the community in ways that they've helped me. Born and raised in the area, and I'm still young enough that I can give a lot back. But as far as elected office, I'm done. And I'm not one of these that's looking for the next place to land when I get term limited out. I did this because I genuinely love being a public servant. So when I'm done being a public servant in an area that I feel is my greatest strength, I will hand the baton over to someone who I hope will be a good steward of the resources that we all pay into in LA County.
Well, supervisors, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us about your work on the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. Anytime. And I really look forward to working with you. Feel free to reach out anytime.
Before we go, here is this month in Pasadena history. It was this month in 1894 when Adam Clark Vroman, an ex-railroad worker, bibliophile, and photographer, partnered with J.S. Glasscock to open Vroman's bookstore at 60 East Colorado Street, featuring books, fine stationery, writing instruments, carved leather goods, and codex and photo supply. By 1900, it was a vibrant community hub that turned Pasadena into a literary capital, according to the LA Times. They soon opened an upstairs reading room with deluxe editions, a fireplace, a writing table, and comfortable chairs where customers were, quote, encouraged to linger, study, or converse. Vroman's bookstore, of course, continues to this day to be one of the best independent bookstores around, with one of the last remaining newsstands. As we gear up for the holidays, remember to support your local bookseller and other small businesses. Thank you all so much for joining me for this episode of News Wrap Local. Tune in every third Friday of the month at 5 p.m. Learn more at pasadenamedia.org and justindouglaschapman.com. Sign up for my monthly email newsletter to get updates on my work by visiting justinchapman.substack.com. See you next time.